Hey, Dr. Gardner, can you hear me? I think right now you can share your screen whenever you're ready. Yes, good. Yeah, I think you mute yourself. There is a mic, a simple here. Yeah, you just click it, turn red into white, then you unmute.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm stuck in the settings right now. I can't get back to where I could see the room, and I can't, there's no way to close it that I can see.
Close it. Right now you're in the room. Do you want to leave and rejoin?
I, I don't even have a leave button. I, maybe I just have to refresh the page. I'll just try refreshing.
Yeah. There is like a X. You just click X, then you leave the meeting, and then you can click the Zoom link again and join. Right now, because there is no video for you.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, good. But we cannot see you. There is a like a video, a camera, like simple. Just click it.
Okay, I tried to start the video and it immediately crashed. That was fun.
Do you want to turn on your camera? Can
Well,
you?
I tried to, but when I did, it crashed right away. I can try it again, but if it crashes, I'm just turn it off.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that seems to be working.
Yes, yes. I can see you and hear you.
Okay, and now
Yeah, I think right now you
what am
can
I?
share your screen. Just click share your screen. Yes, perfect.
Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I saw it. Yeah. And I think right now we haven't start our session. Like maybe we just wait for 5 minutes, then we will start it and wait people to join.
Right.
Yeah,
That sounds great. Thank you.
no problem. Thank you. We will start in 3 minutes. Yeah. Professor, I think you can go ahead. I think you mute yourself again.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, right now good.
Yes, I did. I'm so sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it to this final session on Friday. I know it's a hard time slot, so I appreciate your being here. I wanted to warn you that the dog is in my room and she sometimes decides to be noisy. So if you hear a dog barking, it's here and I'm sorry. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm Tracy Gardner, and the title of my presentation is The Power of Stories in WAC Classrooms, Models and Assignments for Activist and Justice-Oriented Projects. My slides and the transcript are available on my website, 10girl.com/all caps IWAC/2023. And you can find some additional resources there as well. So with that little bit, in case my face wasn't already in the room, I'm Tracy Gardner. My email is 10girl@vt.edu. I'm at Virginia Tech. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an instructor in the professional and technical writing program, and I'm straight, cisgender, white, disabled, and the dog is a poodle who will possibly be barking later. Um, I would have a little bit of a content warning just in case any of these things might be a problem for anyone or a challenge. Um, the presentation includes photos of protests and projects that could disturb someone. The topics following: Black Lives Matter, abortion/pro-choice, women's rights, climate change, LGBTQ plus rights, Occupy Wall Street, gun rights, fair housing, and indigenous rights. I will say that there's nothing graphic about any of the images other than people are protesting in some way. The photo in the background, for instance, shows some indigenous people sharing the message water is sacred while arranged in kayaks on a body of water near Seattle, Washington, as part of um, an Indigenous Day flotilla. My session goals are to discuss the power of stories and actions, in social action, I'm sorry, and then share some example writing projects that ask students and others to tell stories that can drive viral community action. The projects can be customized for many writing courses, including composition, service learning, writing in social justice, community writing, and of course, I use it in technical writing, science writing, and business writing. The projects will work just as well for any kind of a writing across the curriculum course. Every subject area will have corresponding social and community efforts that they can provide focal points for, such as conservation efforts or protection of endangered species or protection and preservation of natural resources, public health and medical issues, supporting health workers, supporting the military. There are lots and lots of options. There's bound to be one for every discipline area that goes. So I'm going to go ahead and get into some background on the power of stories, and then we'll move into the projects. So I'm going to begin with this image that shows 3 young women protesting climate change in Hyde Park in April 2022. The signs they're holding hint at stories related to their protest against the use of carbon fuels. The middle woman holds a sign that says, "I can't believe I'm still protesting this shit." Imagine the stories she can tell of the protesting she has done before this moment. The woman on the right holds a sign that says, "Burning fossil fuels produces 89% of all our carbon emissions. Burn now, pay later equals mass extinction." She has a story about the future that she could tell. Stories like those suggested in this image can be a powerful tool for writing across the curriculum. No matter what the curriculum area, there are stories that can be told. The posters the women on the previous slide shared give us a glimpse of the place storytelling holds in activist and justice-oriented work. If you want to convince someone or help them understand, you need a story. The key to using story successfully is how you set out to use the story that you tell. The opening statement of Oxfam International's Narrative Power and Collective Action explains that stories and narratives are too often used to shut down conversations. We want to explore how they can be used to open dialogue and create, not shrink, space for debate. Stories can support the narrative of those in power, but others can use those narratives as a starting place for discussion, ultimately creating new narratives. Oxfam International's Isabel Crabtree Condor, who edited the Narrative Power and Collective Action booklet, explains that narrative work is used by different groups to keep ideas in place or to propose alternative ways of thinking about, looking at, or acting on issues. In social movements and community action projects, stories are valuable because they can be used to reclaim power and create new spaces for conversation. In this way, story rewrites the community's understanding of the needs and causes for social movements, creating new impetus for continuing the work on activist projects. Marshall Gans, the Rita T. Hauser Senior Lecturer in Leadership, Organizing, and Civil Society at the Kennedy School for Government at Harvard, states in The Power of Story in Social Movements that storytelling is central to social movements because it constructs agency, shapes identity, and motivates action. Through his analysis of the farm workers movement in the 1960s, Gans finds that although we can look at stories as discursive structures, the aspect most clearly shown is storytelling as performance, in which the text is action as well as word and symbol. Appreciating the role of story requires attending to the performance. Who is telling the story? With whom are they interacting? Where and when are the stories told? So for this particular slide, the power is in the hands of the protester. This is a story, this is a slide from November 2014, and the slide explains that the person holding the sign was protesting the name of the Washington football team. This was, of course, before it had been changed. The sign states, "I am not a costume nor a mascot." That sign tells viewers that this person is telling the story, who's telling the story is an Indigenous person interacting with the community near a football arena, encouraging people to support the message and demand that the team's name is changed. In other words, we have agency, identity, and motivation for the action. Because of its power, Story provides a site for writing across the curriculum projects that engage authentic audiences in pursuit of specific goals and strategies. Many social movements create a toolkit for activists to use as they work towards change. Most of the projects I will share can be in addition to such a toolkit, though they can also be standalone projects. I will suggest social media and multimedia projects primarily, but you can easily customize the projects to ask students to write narrative essays or similar texts. Additionally, the projects can be used outside the classroom. Specifically, any of the projects can be used with community writers who are working on collective action projects. In all the projects that I share, I would first have students choose a cause, or they might be assigned a cause that was appropriate for the course. And then we would work with the community members for the cause, with community members on the cause that they were already working on. So the first idea is that you can have students write a piece on the background for the need of the particular social action. Every social movement needs to share background information that explains the cause and persuades readers to join in working for change. One project then is to tell the story of a cause and the needs it will serve by creating a TikTok or YouTube video, assuming TikTok's not banned at your campus like it is at mine. Stories make the cause personal, so ask writers to focus on a specific person or people who have or will benefit from the campaign. Be sure that the background information convinces readers why the cause is important to the community. Now, this could also be worked on as a historical project. All of the pieces could be. So they could be investigating a historical social action and still create the elements that might go into a a, a toolkit for a community. So their background in this case is a video. Another option is to create a timeline. Social benefits benefit from a timeline that shows the growth and work of the movement. Writing across the curriculum assignment then can ask writers to review the accomplishments the action group has reached and the levels of need that exist. The timeline can include past events as well as upcoming milestones. There are two tools that I'm recommending for that. One is Night Lab's Timeline JS, and another is Adobe's Online Timeline Maker to create online time. They both create online timelines for the web. If you didn't want students to use one of those tools, another option would be to have them just create a reel of photos for an Instagram style presentation, and then the comments could provide the timeline text for each one of those photos in their timeline. There's also a tool in Canva that Canva, canva.com, that will let you make infographic timelines. That would be yet another option that you could do to create timelines that would join images, text, and the details about that particular social action that you're working on. I also have this one in particular is a more historical one, obviously. Let's see, where am I? There we go. The project on this, or slide, the photo on this slide shows Black people protesting for fair housing in Seattle in 1964. I've customized this particular project based on this photo. So you might ask students to find a similar photo, or you could share a photo that the whole class is going to use, and then write a description based on a story starter, which I have several, I guess I have 5 there. The photo was taken just before, and then they have to figure out, what was happening just before this, what's going on in this community. These men didn't know yet that, and then you can explain what happens after this particular protest. This person dreams of, and they could imagine what one of these people might be thinking. This photo tells a story about, and in that case, they're just trying to think through what the actual narrative is here. And today, these people think, so actually casting the story into the future where they think about where these people might be now. Have students choose one of these starting points, write the rest of the sentence or compose one of their own, and then expand on the idea by free writing about that starting sentence. With that starting place, they can revise and polish their description to add to their photo on Instagram. And an option, if you don't want to actually use Instagram, is to just have them do it as a slide presentation with the photos similar to this, really. With the photo can be on one side, and then their text for the image can be on the other side of the slide. Let's see. So, yeah, that's all of that one. Sorry. Similar to the background of a cause, you can ask writers to investigate a hashtag and then tell its story. In this particular image, the hashtag is Students for Parkland. Students can choose a local hashtag used by community members to influence collective action, such as the one here, and then identify key moments and comments that include the hashtag. The piece can work as a research project as writers search in Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and other social media for use of the hashtag. Now, some hashtags are huge. Like if students were being asked to work with Black Lives Matter, they would have so much material they wouldn't know. I mean, they wouldn't even begin to know how to filter all of that out. So you definitely need to help students either filter or choose a smaller hashtag, maybe one from their local community or one from the college campus or the school campus. As an alternative, students could, to writing a narrative about the hashtag or a research paper about the hashtag, they could again create a timeline that showed the movement of how this hashtag developed. First it was used here, then it began being used in another way, and then stretch all that out in a timeline. So you would just go back to some of those options that were on the previous slides. Another option is to create a Twitter thread. A Twitter thread is a series of tweets that connect to one another in a chain. It's a strategy for making a statement that is longer than the 280-character limit of a single tweet. It makes a perfect way to tell a story related to an activist or justice-oriented cause. Ask writers to compose a Twitter thread that tells a story about the community they are focusing on. Encourage them to structure the story so that the readers continue to follow the thread. Writers can add photos and/or videos that complement the story to keep readers' interest. Be sure to review the required technical details that will keep the posts in the thread together, which I've got actually linked to the phrase Twitter thread on the slide and in the speaker note transcript, so you can get to it later if you want to. So as an example, consider a Twitter thread inspired by this photo of street art during the George Floyd protests. The layers of name tags for victims of police violence pile up upon one another. A Twitter thread might include a post for each person named in the image. And you could see that you could also make this be an Instagram reel if you wanted to, with the different people included in different portions of the reel. Now I'm going to turn to far more multimodal kinds of, more visual and graphic kinds of things. On this slide, the image shows a fabric patch created in the shape of a bus with a 14-word story that emphasizes the situation the group wants to change. The 6:22 p.m. train. Where did I get bus from? The 6:22 p.m. train from Liverpool Street to Clacton has 262 more passengers than seats. The patch shows the interior of the bus filled with riders as a representation of the crowded situation. For this last project, ask writers to create a similar artifact that tells a story related to the cause they focus on. And obviously it doesn't have to be patches, but they can if that's what they want to do. You might ask them to do a 3D model, like the one shown here. And this is just a portion of a larger diorama of all these people protesting Occupy Wall Street. Writers can use whatever medium they like for this kind of an artifact building project. It could be a painting, a drawing, a song, a collage, a needlework project like the patch on the previous slide, a Lego build like the one here, a Minecraft space, a video documentary, a photo essay. There are just tons and tons of options for things that they could do, including things like audio recordings that I don't have listed here, I guess, like create a podcast on whatever it happens to be. So photos of the artifacts can then be included in the materials that are used by the social movement, and the objects can be displayed during protests, meetings, and other events, as well as having photos of the particular builds that they've made online in their social media. This has gone way too fast. I thought I had way too much information, but we're already at the last slide. I've shared just a few ways that ask writers to explore the power of stories in activist and justice-oriented products. There are many other options for writing projects. For additional resources on story and other ideas for engaging in work on activist and justice-oriented projects, see the list of links included on the page with this session's slides. And again, that's the link at the bottom of the slide that you can get to the information. I'm also developing a website this summer, at least I hope to get it done this summer, that will include some additional materials for teaching technical communication, for community action, and will build on the start here, because these are basically just germs of the ideas, but I'll have some additional information on the website that will help folks. And I do have a couple of references out here that are out there in case we need them, but I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the slide that has the link to it. I can't believe I got through that so quickly. So at this point, I guess I would open this up to questions or comments. And since I'm online, you have to somehow either shout or find a microphone, I guess.
Yeah, I will handle that. Questions?
Or you can just go and relax by the pool or something. I don't know what's there. I'm sure you're ready to go have a nice cool drink.
Yeah, there's a question.
I see.
My question is, so you have a lot of different ideas. Do you try to do these all in one class? Do you give your students a lot of freedom in selecting what their product is? If it's the latter, how do you assess their ability to create an effective story?
So it obviously is going to depend upon the class and how much experience that they have had with this kind of work. My technical writing classes are junior, senior levels. So they've done enough work with projects that I can give them a little bit more freedom than I might give, say, a first year writing course or students in a K-12 situation. In terms of the story, I think I would have two separate ways of going at the assessment. And I, part of it would be talking about how we structure narrative, in the same way that in technical writing, I would talk about how you structure a proposal or anything else. You know, what does a story need to have to get across to its readers or listeners or viewers? And then there's also going to be pieces to it like how does the design actually draw people in? So part of the assessment is just is the story doing what it needs to in terms of a narrative structure, but then also does the document design, and I'm using document very loosely there, contribute to helping the person read the information and gather what the particular social movement would want you to know about their projects and what they're doing. It's in terms of the latitude I would give students, as I said, that would really sort of depend upon what the group was. If I was doing the last one where I'm asking them to show the story and they have a lot of different ways that they could show that story, I might narrow the list down some depending upon their experience, because I probably don't have time to teach Minecraft and how to build Legos and how to sew and how to, you know, I don't have time to do all of that. So they're going to have to bring some of that themselves to the projects. I would be fairly open to whatever project students might want to try, but there would probably some that I might take off of that list to make it a little bit more doable for students. And since it is a technical writing service learning course, or not service learning, service course that's meant to help prepare them for workplace writing and other kinds of writing in their professional communities, I might try to lean them a little bit more in that kind of a class towards things that would definitely cross over to the kind of writing that they would do in a workplace scenario. So for instance, timelines are in all sorts of technical writing. You have a project timeline, you might have the project, you might have a schedule that you've worked out for what you're trying to do in a proposal. There are lots of ways that they're going to have to think about timelines, describe what happened in timelines. So timelines would be a real strong tool that I might ask them to use. I think does that get at everything? Okay. I think you're shaking your head yes. Okay. It's really hard because you're about that big.
Another
You're
one?
very teeny.
Mike, I kind of have two questions. Do you provide
Okay.
your students with sources at all? And if you don't do that, do you provide them with like venues for sources?
I usually try to give them some starting places. For the most part, if we're working with a community project, that community is going to have resources that would come with it. So because we're not all from the same area, I'm going to choose a larger one. Let's say we were going to talk about public health, and so we were going to use resources for a particular public health campaign, like keeping your COVID shots up to date, right? So then I know that there are resources at the CDC that I could point them to. There would be people at the local health district that I could point them to. So I would kind of give them some of those resources, but they really are going to be based on whatever topic that they choose. And since you want them to create things that could be used by the community group, you would ideally want to work with the materials that that group has. If that group has a lot of great statistics and just isn't really putting them out there in a way that people are reading them, then you want to use their statistics, right? You wouldn't want to get statistics from some other town or something like that. So that's how I would handle the information on where they get the research from. I mean, they could still find other materials. That certainly, I would never complain if a student did extra research. I'm not sure any of us would. Was there, did I get at what you were asking? Okay. Did you have another question?
Yeah. Here.
Hi, thank you very much for your
Hi.
presentation.
Thank you.
You mentioned for your technical or professional writing or service classes,
Right.
you might suggest like a timeline. What other genres would you try? Have you tried in the past for those students or in those
Right.
classes?
Well, part of it, depending on how you decide to structure things, it may be that they choose a particular community and then they're going to propose what they are going to try to provide for that community. So that would be one option in particular, that they could write a proposal and then kind of a report that might follow after it. Another option is to work on a social media campaign where they're trying to write public facing tweets, Instagram tags and comments that might be used. If you've seen many social campaigns, they'll frequently be like everybody's going to put this one thing on Facebook at the same time. I'm probably my examples are more Facebooky than they are Instagram right now, but you know how something will happen and you'll get that overlay on Facebook that you can put over your profile picture that says you support whatever the cause of the day happens to be. So they would be the thing. So that's another option where they have to plan out a schedule and create the resources, create sample tweets that people can use, or even discussion starters that might help someone tell their own testimonial story in the form of a series of tweets or something like that. I've also done infographics because those can be really helpful in terms of asking students to think about how to present information graphically, which clearly, from my perspective, folds into everything else they're doing in technical writing. You know, reports are going to be a lot better if the statistics are easy for people to understand. You could put the infographic in some kind of a report in the workplace, but you could also take pieces of the infographic and split them out. And once they understand it in one genre, I think that they can see how it moves over into other genres. So I've done that kind of writing too. Some of it is just basic standard writing in terms of, like I said, testimonials or descriptions of things that the group might do. They can also write instructions and technical descriptions. So if your cause is, let's see, somebody's Steph, is that who I'm talking to? I don't know. Steph said that she had some groups working on climate change activism. So there are probably some key terms about climate change that might need to be explained in a way that an 8th grader can understand, because that's where we usually shoot for the general audience. So you want this to be able to read clearly to a regular public audience without jargon, and come through in a way that they understand. So that's a good place for technical description. In terms of instructions, it can be things as simple as how to use some of the tools that you're asking them to go to for a social media campaign, like how do you create a Twitter thread, right? So if you're asking them to create a Twitter thread story about how climate change is affecting them, or an Instagram reel, they might need instructions on how to do that. Now, Instagram, they probably know more about than all of us combined, but there are places where the general public, who you're writing for, might need more information. It can also be, I've seen some sites about groups that protest, in particular, where protests can turn, how do I want to say this politely? I want to say violent. When the sides either clash in a really bad way, or there's my family has a lot of people in the police force. I love police officers, but some police officers do not deserve our love. Let's just say it that way, right? So I have seen some instructions about what to do if you get tear gassed at a protest. And that, depending upon your community, might be instructions that your group needs to make, or to think about how do you stay safe in these situations and provide them some instructions or a list of tips or something like that. So there are lots of things that they can create, but they have to really sit and think about what people in that community might need or want to help get their point out there into the world. Does that answer the question? Probably more than enough. Okay. Anybody else?
All right. I think that's it. Thank you so much today.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you. Go have a lovely evening in Clemson. And this stuff will be online. And when I do get the website set up, I will push that out through all of the various internet places that you can find it. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your attending.